So here's today's question. Who do you think MPs actually serve? And what should the order of that loyalty be? Is it the country, their party, their constituents, or just frankly themselves? Because when I look at Westminster right now, I don't see duty. I see a bunch of career influencers with lanyards and pensions, voting for a podcast slot and a second home in the Cotswolds.
Nice. Elbows out.
Wish I could, but I can't. Well, can, but won't. Should, maybe, but shorn't.
Michael, please.
What part of shorn't don't you understand, Kevin?
It's getting to the point now where MP letdowns are more regular than the bin collection. And somehow we're expected to treat us like a system that works. So I saw this clip of Labour MP Clive Lewis saying on camera that if the best thing for the country and therefore for the Labour Party was for Keir Starmer to go, then he'd be willing to give up his safe seat to make way for a potential new leader.
But I'm not sure if he wants to move to Norwich, but would you give up your seat
It's
for
a
him?
question I've asked myself, and I'd have to obviously consult with my wife as well and family. But you know what? If I'm going to sit here and say, country before party, party before personal ambition, then yes, I have to say yes, don't I?
You give up your seat for Andy Burnham?
I would, yeah.
Wow.
That was the first time in ages that I've heard an MP openly acknowledge that there is a hierarchy of loyalty. And that's actually refreshing. I mean, it should be. But the cynic in me, I wouldn't be surprised the decision came with a few, let's just say, future concessions. And maybe that's really mean of me. But you do start to wonder, at what point is it loyalty? And we've seen this before. I mean, it's not just a Labour thing. David Cameron, you remember him? He promised he'd stay and lead the country whichever way the Brexit referendum went. But when the vote didn't go his way, suddenly, poof, he vanished. His personal conviction mattered more than the country's choice. And it left Britain divided in politics, culture, identity. And then there's Boris. He stepped forward with his Churchillian swagger to take us forward into independence. But then there came the pandemic, and the selfies, the scandal after scandal. He didn't lead with a country-first mentality. He got caught up in leftish personal and party politics, and it took his career and frankly the party's credibility with him. And now we're on to Starmer. Once sold to the left, in the centre ground is this trustworthy lawyer who'd stand up for the working people, and yet there's this sense that it's the loudest who are steering Labour's ship. And Starmer's just trying to book himself an aisle seat onto the next international speaking gig. Because this all came to a head when I watched Shabana Mahmood announce Labour's new immigration policy. And yet some of the headlines were about Keir Starmer. Because he wasn't there. And it made me think, if the leader of the party can't even be present for his own team's policy, then who exactly is he trying to serve? His party? His image? Or his own PR strategy? And again, I think, what about when MPs know that trouble's ahead? Because let's talk about last week's autumn budget, yeah? Autumn. Even though it's December this week, but I get it. I get it. Maybe Rachel Reeves is just like me and refuses to let go of October. But what stuck with me was all of the leaks to gauge early public reaction and her messaging before the budget. She called for MPs to show unity. Before the budget speech and numbers were even out, before MPs and constituents could react, before they even knew what they were being asked to unite around. Because that's the thing, when you ask your MPs for unity in advance, what you're really asking for is put the party first, even if the public screams later. And I just think to myself, if you know that something is going to land badly and your reaction is to ask for silence, that's not necessarily a good thing for the country. That's not loyalty, that's party and self-preservation.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
And sometimes I do have to start wondering, Do some of these MPs even have loyalty to Britain anymore? Because apparently, Britain needs to attract the best and the brightest, which is bold coming from a party that can't even attract competent MPs. And I just thought, we already have them. So why are we undercutting British workers in the name of global prestige, and then turning around and calling yourselves the party of British working people? Now, don't get me started on Prime Minister's questions. PMQs is where nuance goes to die, and backbenchers get to rehearse their West End debut in Blame, the musical. I hate watching it. Questions aren't questions and the answers aren't answers. It's just the Prime Minister doing stand up while everyone else around him acts like it's live with the Apollo. It's supposed to be accountability. It's just performance art now, and it's not even good performance art. Watching PMQs explains so much about why public debate has collapsed, along with public morale. Because PMQs teaches us that debate means perform for your party, blame the opposition, and under no circumstances ever in your whole life admit that anyone else might have a point.
When will he finally accept that the chaos starts and ends with him?
I object.
And the blame game, it's constant. Labour says that they're fixing what the Tories broke. Not necessarily wrong, but then the Tories were only fixing Labour's last mess. And whoever gets in next will just do it all over again. A never-ending cycle of fixing and blaming, while the country loses faith that any of this actually works. So I think we've entered this really weird new phase of British politics, because it's not just party versus party anymore. It's kind of becoming a social civil war against the establishment itself, against politicians who no longer seem to put the country first. And by country, I don't mean a flag-waving photo op. I mean the actual working population, the people who make this place run. So if you're clocking in, paying tax, raising children, showing up, you are the country. And if politics isn't giving you better choices in education, housing, job opportunities, then it's failing. Because what's the point in governance if it isn't enriching lives? Not just financially, but spiritually too. Because if we want to get out of this mess, we have to have full transparency. Not just from the backbenchers, but from the very top. Because if you're leading a party, any party, no matter how big or small, and I'm supposed to trust your vision for the future, then tell me what you believe. Tell me your philosophy. Tell me who you voted for in the past. Tell me why you've changed your mind, but most importantly, tell me now before you want my vote. Not after the reshuffle, not in your memoir, and not behind a paywall interview. Because if the leader isn't clear, then why should we expect MPs to be? We need to know from each party, what do they expect from their representatives? Is it national interest, party loyalty, constituency focus, or just staying quiet and voting safe to protect their ministerial hopes? The answer shouldn't be grey, and if it is, then why are we surprised when the only people gaining popularity are the ones who don't blur the lines? Because when the middle ground becomes so vague, the extremes become magnetic. Because at least they say what they mean. People are tired of politicians who won't speak plainly, who hide behind party messaging or vague manifestos or tired cliches. Or worse, who change their beliefs based on what social media says. And we started treating elections like a beauty contest for the party leader, as if we're voting for them directly. Most of us aren't. We're voting for a local MP, somebody reflective of our values. Only, they might not be at all. Because just wearing a party badge doesn't mean your MP actually believes in that party's vision. And when the leader changes direction or changes their mind entirely, or frankly is changed out, we're the ones stuck living with the confusion. What happens when your values no longer match the party you thought you trusted? Or when your MP doesn't reflect your beliefs, but you have no say in replacing them? That's how this cycle becomes just dysfunctional. And that's why this question has to matter. Because we're becoming a country where you can walk down the street and feel like you're passing through entirely different realities, different beliefs, different languages, different philosophies, even different feelings about the flag. And when a country gets that fragmented, what holds us together has to be trust. Trust that the people in charge are being honest, that they'll tell us why they voted the way that they did, who they were listening to, and what they were prioritizing. Because without that, I'm not sure how Britain moves forward, not in a way that feels like home. So I'm going to ask you again, who do you think MPs actually serve? And what should the order of that loyalty be? Because the more I think about it, the more I realise I have no clue. So tell me in the comments. I really do want to know what you think. Because if we don't start having this conversation, then honestly, who will? So let me know. Think about liking and subscribing, and thank you so much.